What's going on, everybody? Christian here from Planet CHH, and today we continue our journey from the book Taking Shape as we talk about 10 wild facts of Halloween 2 from 1981. This book has become a fascinating read as I'm learning things that I'd never heard before through documentaries and other things, and it's been really great reading this. So I just got done with the Halloween 2 chapter, and I found some cool things that I had never heard before. Again, if you had heard of these, thumbs up, you are a bigger Halloween fan than me, but if not, please give this video a thumbs up, and if you enjoy these types of videos, please give them a thumbs up so I know you are, and I will continue to do this for each chapter of this book, which is all the Halloween films to date. So the next one would be Halloween 3, which I'm chomping at the bit to read about because I'm hoping I find out some really fascinating things about the production and other things like that. So with that being said, guys, let's get started with 10 wild facts about Halloween 2. So the first fact about Halloween 2 I learned was, of course we know that happened with Irwin Yablans and John Carpenter. We know that they had somewhat of a falling out when the Avco Embassy basically gave John Carpenter a better deal to make a movie, and when they had a legal battle, Irwin got the rights for making Halloween 2. But did you know that the tension really boiled over more than what might be led to believe? So much so that Irwin Yablans was not even allowed on set for the production of Halloween 2. Per Deborah and John Carpenter. They did not want him around. They did not want to see him. Tensions boiled over, obviously, when the Avco Embassy deal went down with John, and they were basically at blows with each other. So Irwin Yablans was nowhere near the set on the making of Halloween 2. Pretty wild to think about when you think back just a few years. These guys were high-fiving, hugging when they created one of the most seminal horror movies ever. That's the movie business for you. Okay, so the second fact about Halloween 2 that I found interesting to learn from a personal perspective from Irwin Yablans as well is, obviously we know now that Halloween 2 and 3 are what are known as the Universal Halloween movies. Obviously now we've got more with Halloween 2018 and Halloween Ends, but one thing that I thought was interesting was hearing what Irwin Yablans said about this. Something that was a personal take from Irwin Yablans that I'd never heard him say before. Irwin talked about selling the rights to do Halloweens 2 and a potential sequel 3 to Dino De Laurentiis during this time. He would call this his biggest regret ever. The reason he did this was because A, the money deal he got from Dino was in fact really good, so he made good money, but B, he was very busy with Trancas Pictures. He was in the production of, I think, 2 or 3 movies at the time, and he was going to feel overwhelmed with the production of doing another movie, Halloween 2, at the time. Between that and a good money offer, he felt that it was right to sell the rights to Dino to do the next 2 Halloween films. But he calls this his biggest regret because looking back, he felt that this could have catapulted Trancas to become a bigger player in the movie industry at that time. So Irwin calls selling the rights to do Halloween 2 to Dino his biggest regret ever. And one of the third facts I learned with Halloween 2 was what one of the ideas was for doing the movie. The big idea that we've heard Tommy Lee Wallace talk about was Laurie being in college and Michael stalking her there. But there was another idea that came about, which was going to be Laurie Strode living in a high-rise apartment far away from Haddonfield, presumably maybe Chicago or New York City. That idea was floated for a while, but then axed. Movies like Poltergeist 3 pop into my mind where I like the setting, but they don't typically lend themselves to being too scary. I guess you could also look at a movie like Child's Play, which pulls it off pretty well, but who knows? I guess there could be a movie there, but I have a hard time picturing that in my head. What do you think about that? Ultimately, that idea was scrapped not too long after pre-production started. Okay, so the fourth fact about Halloween 2 I found fascinating was another idea that they had floated to do for this movie, which was to make Halloween 2 a 3D movie. That would have been wild, considering that there's never been a 3D Halloween movie yet. Kind of surprised about that, really. But what ultimately axed that idea with John Carpenter and the producers was that the fact that the script mostly took place at night. So after a few weeks, the producers and John decided that that was probably not a good way to go. But it was taken seriously for a few weeks with John and the producers. So in the pre-production days of Halloween 2, the Los Angeles Times had reported that David Lynch was a name that was going to be looked at for maybe becoming the director of this film during this time. That would have been wild. At that time, I think David was just known for his Eraserhead, so his career hadn't come to true fruition for the style of film that he would totally be known for and the wild worlds that he would create. I could only imagine a David Lynch directed Halloween 2, but at the same time, I think it's also just as well, because with some of the facts we're going to learn about next, John and Deborah really wanted the movie to look and feel like the previous one, and I can't see David Lynch going along with that. So quite frankly, that probably would have been a producer's nightmare, with David probably wanting to make this film look and feel a totally different way than it probably did. But could you imagine a David Lynch directed Halloween film? I could only believe it when I see it. So the next one is not necessarily a new fact that nobody's ever talked about, but reading about it, it seemed way more severe than I had been led on to believe, especially through documentaries where some of the people just don't go into as much detail. So once the first cut of Halloween was done and Rick Rosenthal put it together, nobody liked it. Nobody. The producers hated it, John hated it, Deborah hated it. They hated it all so much that John gave pages and pages of extensive notes. He also gave tons of edit ideas for Rick to do, and the sad thing was, on a second pass of the re-edit, it still came back so poorly received that John came in and did 3 days of additional shooting. So, poor Rick, you know. I think a lot of people end up really liking the film now, but you gotta decide in your head who's more to blame. John hates his script for Halloween 2 and hates the ideas that he came up with it, but he also felt that Rick Rosenthal just didn't have the right feel for what the film should have been. So who's more to blame at this? At one hand, you've got John disowning himself, but in other interviews around the mid-80s, he also disowns Rick Rosenthal's presentation for the film. So that's kind of left up for you, the viewer, to decide. This fact that I thought was really interesting. Now, this could be something that hardcore fans already know, but I wasn't too aware of this. John Carpenter shot the scene in the beginning of the film where the girl is talking on the phone when she learns about Michael Myers, and that famous shot where Dick Warlock pops up and stabs her right in the chest and you get to see the blood hit his eyes. John directed that scene, and I didn't know that. If you did, kudos, but that was news to me. I knew John came in to direct some stuff, but I never had an idea of how much or what it was, and apparently it was 3 days worth of shooting, and one of the most significant shots was that shot, so I thought that was worth mentioning, because that's probably my favorite shot in the movie, quite frankly. So the 8th wild fact about Halloween 2 that I learned was, of course, there was a ton of deleted footage. Some of this deleted footage would make its way onto the TV cut, but there was still a ton of footage that has never seen the light of day for Halloween 2. Will it ever? I don't think so. One of the scenes was where Michael hears the TV producers talking about going to the hospital to get a statement from Laurie Strode. Michael gets into the trunk of the TV news producer's car when she tells her crew that they need to go to the hospital to get a statement from Laurie Strode. This is one way that they explain Michael getting to the hospital. The way we know now is the scene where Michael hears the kid with the radio and he hears about where Laurie is at, which is at the hospital. Michael gets into the trunk of the TV news producer's car. She gets a flat tire halfway there. A farmer redneck type character pulls up behind her and offers to help fix the flat tire. She declines. That character was played by Rick Rosenthal, by the way. He drives off. When she goes into the trunk to get the jack out, Michael kills her, gets in the seat of the car, and starts driving to the hospital. Now, Rick Rosenthal states that at least half of that sequence was filmed. That would have been something else. I like the idea of Michael getting into a car, but what we had in the film now was a much more simplistic way of showing how he knew Laurie was at the hospital and getting there. Okay, so the 9th wild fact about Halloween 2 is something that was in the initial drafts for the film. And I thought this would have been cool, and I wish this would have been kept in, quite frankly. In the initial draft of the film would have opened the same way we've seen it now, but would have started with a different point of view. The film was supposed to start in the initial draft with 2 kids trick-or-treating on the street where Michael Myers was about to be killed. When they're at the house next door to where Michael is at, they get candy from that house, go into the front of the house, knock on the door, and they kind of push the door open when they realize it's not exactly shut. They peer into the house, hear the gunshots, see Michael fall down below, and they turn around in pure shock. Now we know that the kids are not there. Dr. Loomis looks outside, sees Michael is not there, then comes out and there's no kids there. And I like that idea. I thought that would have been really cool, but for some reason that was stricken from the drafts as time went on. The 10th fact I learned about Halloween 2, there were a lot of small things that I read about with the novel, placements of things throughout the novel, and adding things back from initial drafts, but I just wanted to go with something personal from Dean Cundy because I know that most people love Dean Cundy. So one of the cool facts I learned about Dean Cundy is he was never asked to be a cinematographer on any of the sequels past Halloween 3, and he has never seen the majority of the sequels, and he hates Rob Zombie's Halloween. Not really a wild behind-the-scenes fact, but just something I thought was worth mentioning because I know I'm a big Dean Cundy fan. He's done a lot of great movies like Jurassic Park, Back to the Future. He's worked on so many greats, and I just thought it was worth mentioning that nobody wanted to ask him to come back after Halloween 3? Like, why not? It's Dean Cundy. He's the look and feel of Halloween. Why not bring him back? But irregardless, I do like the way a lot of the sequels look, like Halloween 5 and 6. They have great visual looks that are different from Dean, and so I guess I can't really complain. But still, just surprised that he was never asked back. Maybe he would have wanted too much money, or basically just more than scale, which is what he would deserve, and those movies were made pretty cheap. But irregardless. So those were 10 facts about Halloween 2 that I learned from the book Taking Shape. The one that I thought was the most fascinating was obviously the fact that David Lynch was floated around as being a contender to direct the movie. And while I don't necessarily think it would have worked out that well, there's no denying that if he would have gotten his way, David Lynch would have made a wildly different looking film. And I can only see it to believe it, quite frankly. So, again, guys, if you enjoyed this video, please drop a like on this. Let me know about what you might have learned new from what I got from this book. And if you want to see me continue this with doing Halloween 3, 10 Wild Facts about that, get this book on Amazon, guys. I'll have a link down below. It'll be an affiliate link. So it won't cost you anything extra. I'll just get a couple cents if you buy one from Amazon. And Taking Shape 2 should be coming to my house soon, which is all about the unmade Halloween sequels, which I think is ripe for a podcast episode, so that'll be fun. But anyway, guys, this is CHH. Hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you guys next time. Thank you to all my supporters on Patreon. To get behind-the-scenes photos, videos, and music, you can subscribe to my Patreon for as little as $1 a month.